Welcome back to the art room. My name is Jessica. So usually my videos aren't formatted like this. You usually see me at the start and at the end, and most of the time my videos are just me and my hands. So today is a special day. We're actually going to be talking to a sports photographer, and his name is Jose Carlos Fajardo, and he's going to be telling us about his job as a sports photojournalist. So I hope you guys enjoyed this interview. So I'm just gonna start with just a basic question. What is photojournalism?
Well, photojournalism, what I identify as, is the art of being a journalist, but using photography as a way to show a story, but using pictures.
Wow.
And so my job is to go out into the community and photograph news events, features, sports, and present them in a way in photography so people can look at them.
Okay. So where did you go to school and how did you come into becoming a photojournalist?
I went to school at Los Pinos College in Pittsburgh.
Okay.
But my first thing that I wanted to do, I wanted to be a graphic designer.
Really?
Yes. And so I went to school as a graphic designer. And while I was going to school there, I got a part-time job at a newspaper as a photo tech.
Oh.
And what they taught me was about using Photoshop and getting photos ready for publication for halftone print, and using it in a four press, in a four press processing. So I was taught basically that area first, and so I started getting involved by. I'm very curious, so I started asking people like, "What do you guys do all day?"
Okay.
And they're like, "Well, we're photojournalists." And so I got really excited because a lot of the stuff that we covered was a lot of spot news and fires and stuff. And so I started going out with some of the photographers.
Wow.
So
Okay.
I went out with them and I learned from them. And at that time, I decided to switch my major from a graphic designer to photojournalist. Now, here's the problem, though, is because I had to make a decision. Do I keep going to school or do I get an on-job training? And so what I decided to at the moment was I was in a really unique situation where I was being taught my job. And so I decided to stay, and but graphic design helped me incredibly because graphic design taught me about color, design, composition. It taught me art and history. So I was able to use that in my photography.
That's amazing.
Yeah, and then the problem was that when it came time to turn in my photo assignment for my photo class, I got an incomplete. I failed it because I didn't turn in my assignment.
Really?
And that was 25 years ago.
Wow.
So I'm doing a job that I love to do, but I basically was taught on the job by people that I highly respected and that were very, very versatile in what it is, because photojournalism has so many different fields. It's not just about taking pictures of car accidents or fires. It's about, photographing community events and photographing food reviews and restaurants. So you have to be really good in all these things.
So there's just like different subgenres of like photojournalism then.
Correct. But as newspaper, especially if you work in a local small newspaper, you get in more exposure in all these things, because I got to be able to work with community leaders. I got to work with Cub Scouts and Boy Scouts and Girl Scouts and schools. I went to schools all the time. And so that opened my doors to a lot of just opportunities to be able to be in touch with that community.
Really? I thought it was the opposite, like the bigger publication you worked at, like the more exposure you got. Not necessarily like a small.
Yeah, that is true. But the bigger the paper, the more bigger events that you cover. So when I went from the smaller paper in Antioch to Walnut Creek, I ended up covering national news and state news. And so I ended up covering the state elections at the governor's office. I covered assignments in in El Salvador and Mexico. And
Really?
I
So you get to
travel,
travel with your job?
yes, all the time.
Oh my God, where have
Not
you
right now,
Not right
but
now, of course. So where
yeah.
have you been with where does your job take you?
Well, one of some of the most memorable places I've been is I helped. Let's see, I covered Hurricane Katrina back in 2004, I believe.
Wow.
I was there for
A
three
lot.
weeks. Yeah, my job was to cover the airport, and so I was stationed at the airport, and I was documenting everything that happened at the airport, from babies being born, to people passing away, to people being transported and put into airplanes, which they had no idea where they were going to. They were basically being put on a plane and then flown out of the city in New Orleans because it was flooded. There was nothing you could do there. And so people had no idea that if they got on a plane, if they were going to Texas, Oklahoma, Florida. It was a very interesting time of that history. But I've also covered stuff like where I traveled on the road, following Barry Bonds for a month and a half for his
Really?
record home run, for passing Babe Ruth. And so I was on the road with him for I was on the road for a month, but I went to like 4 different cities.
Oh my
And
God.
yeah, so I've covered a lot. I've done 5 NBA championships. I did the Super Bowl in January this year.
Really? That must have been fun.
It was a lot of fun. And then I've done 4 World Series and a Rose Bowl. And so I do a lot of sporting events because I'm really good at it, but I'm very adaptable. That's one thing I should tell everybody. When you're a photojournalist, you have to be very, very able to adapt to different situations, because
Really?
you have a lot of things that happen to you where you need to be able to think, concentrate, and adapt to those things.
Wow.
So yeah.
Okay. So, like you said, you were primarily a sports photographer, yes? So, during COVID-19, what are you doing right now that's not sports related, since all the arenas are closed and nothing's really on right now?
Right. So about when it first started, the majority of the things we started covering was basically how it impacted the community. And so a lot of my assignments were basically, what are people doing? And so, or what are they not doing? And so I had to learn how to photograph a lot of these things with social distancing, and basically not going into people's houses until we knew more about the virus. And so when I first started, all my assignments were outside. And then now they're kind of going inside a little bit, but as long as I'm very careful. And my work provides me with, masks, goggles, gloves, and all these things. And there's a procedure that we use when we do this. But the majority of the things I've been covering now for COVID is basically, hospitals, outside testing. What are people doing? Like, getting ready for, opening up, and restaurants and stuff like that.
Okay. So it's a lot more different than what you were doing before. Okay.
There's a progression like every month, but unfortunately starting today, there's going to be a lot more. The governor announced that they're going to stop closing they're going to close a lot of things. And
Yeah.
so we might revert back to that. But I am scheduled to photograph the PGA tournament here in San Francisco at Harding Park in about 3 weeks.
Wow, that's
And
great.
yeah, and I'm excited because it'll be my first, but I also have baseball coming up. So I
Yeah.
believe I've got Oakland A's and Giants, and so we might be going to those games, and there'll be lots of rules, and there's going to be a lot of limitations, but we'll be able to photograph from the stands, I believe, as long as we stay put.
Okay, so and then all the stadium seats are all empty, right? And like it's just the players and the workers and the photographers.
Yeah, I believe they're not even having bat boys. I believe there's no cook, there's no hours for them. A long list of things that they're not going to be able to eat there. So there's a lot of things they're going to have to change that they're not very used to it, but it's all for their safety. And so for my job, I will probably be getting there even earlier, maybe 3 hours before a game. And then I'll set up where I can. And then I sit there and I wait and I don't move.
Wow. Okay. So what is your process for getting ready for like taking a photo, and like when you get there, like what are the steps you take to like get ready and get in the zone?
Well, actually, that's a really good question. But the question more, what sport am I going to cover, right?
Yeah.
So if I'm covering a basketball game, it's going to be completely different from covering a football game, and completely different from covering a baseball game, because in a baseball game, I'm always sitting.
Really?
Yeah, we have these little booths that we have on first base and third base and behind the backstop. And then in football, we're allowed to move on the end zones back and forth.
Okay.
But we're not allowed to stand where the football players stand, right, between the 25 marker. And in basketball, we have a little spot at the designated for our newspaper at the Warriors, and we sit there, and we're allowed to stay there for the entire game. And so that's our spot. And so what are the things I do is prepare, is just make sure all my gear's ready, batteries are charged, all my cameras are working, and basically my laptop has enough memory to download all the photos, because I usually average around 2,000 to 3,000 photos a game.
Wow, that's a lot of photos. Oh my God.
And I only send about 15 photos or 20 photos. So
just 15 out of like 2,000 or 3,000? That's insane.
it is. Imagine having to edit through all that.
Oh,
So you have to
edit
sit
by
there.
yourself? Wow.
Now at a Warriors game, like say a big NBA playoff, like what we had this last year, not this year, but last year, I shot with 3 cameras on me. So I have a wide angle, I have a zoom and a big lens, but I also have remote cameras up situated all over the arena.
Oh, okay.
So each camera has around 2,000 photos. So 2,000 times 5.
Oh my God, that's so much photos. And you're like, wow.
So we have to go, and the hard part is actually going after the game. If you're exhausted, right? The game's over. But that means I still have to go all the way to the roof or all the way across the arena around the stadium to grab those cameras at the end of the game.
Oh
And
my
I still
God.
have to look through all the pictures.
All those pictures just to see like which one come out the best.
Yeah. Because in sports, you have to realize that when you're looking at a photo, a sports action photo, you have to look at how there's a moment in that sporting event that made a difference, right? So let's just say, for example, Klay Thompson, basically tearing his ACL.
Oh,
That photo is an important photo in what happened.
really?
So you have to go back and look for that one moment in time.
Wow. So do you like ever like mark down the events that happen and then like try and when you're looking through the photos, you're just like, okay, I need to look for this, this, and this.
You have to remember. You have to sit there and go, but you have to actually pay attention, and then you have to watch the action. Then you got to make sure no one lands on you, and then you have to look at what's happening in the corners, and then so you just have a lot of stuff going on. So that's what I was talking about, being able to multitask and being able to prioritize. A lot of that stuff comes into play, so it helps to be very organized.
Okay. So what do you think makes the perfect shot when you're at a game, you're getting ready, and you feel like you might get this one thing? Like what do you think makes the perfect shot? Or is there even a thing as the perfect shot?
I don't think there'll ever be the perfect shot, but I think I've when I first started, I thought that, yes, that's the what I want, a perfect touchdown photo for the Super Bowl or something. But what happens as you get older, you realize that there's more to it than that, because there's little things in history that make a photo important. And so my job is to be able to get myself in the right spot to photograph that moment in sports or in history and news, in anything really. And so I really try to use my experience from doing this from 25 years to make sure that I'm standing in the right spot without getting blocked, that I have enough space on my card, my digital card, or my batteries have enough battery juice. All these things have to play into the circumstance of what I'm going to do.
Okay.
So to ask your perfect. So I guess my most perfect photo that I really love is probably a sports photo, because I think sports happens so quickly. You only have seconds to capture that one moment, right?
Yeah, because you just kind of miss it if you blink or like turn somewhere else, right?
And things happen so fast. And so, I have lots of images. I probably can't pick out one, but probably a Steph Curry photo will probably be one of my favorite, because I photograph him so much. And I spent a lot of time on the road with the team. And so, and I respect Steph Curry a lot. And so I could say I've been photographing him since he first started in 2009. And yeah, so I have lots of pictures of him as a young kid. So I've watched him grow up.
That's amazing. Like when the kids watch this, I hope they really get inspired by what you do, and hopefully some of the kids will follow in your steps.
Well, I appreciate that. And one of the things that I really want kids to learn is that photography is an outlet. It allows kids to basically, when you feel like you just feel like you want to be creative, but if you don't, say you're not a very good drawer, and say you're not a very good, painter, but photography allows you to capture a moment, to work at it. And if it's not perfect, that's okay. You can go back and you can learn from your mistakes. And allows you to basically, when you have something, you show it to the world, just like everything else. So it doesn't mean you have to be really good at it. It just means that you have to have something that you love to do.
Yeah, that's amazing. I really hope the kids really take your advice.
I hope so too. But yeah, and if there's ever any questions, if there's anything I could do to help, please let me know. But one of the things that I do is on my Instagram account, I try to, right now, since I don't have a lot of sports going on, I try to put stuff that I like, that I enjoyed, that kind of like, whenever things happen, like 4th of July is coming up. So I put stuff that's fireworks related. And the best way the kids can learn about these things is if they find someone that they really enjoy their artwork or their photography, to ask questions. Don't be afraid to ask questions. That's what people are here to help out. And so if they do have those questions, feel free to ask me. And so I will always have time for that.
Okay, we'll definitely put your Instagram handle in our descriptions when this.
You're welcome. Thank you.
Do you ever shoot on film?
Yes, I do shoot on film, and I have lots of film cameras here. Give me one second.
Okay.
So this is an old Nikon F3.
Wow.
This thing's heavy, but
I've
look.
never seen that before.
Yeah, so these things are very heavy, but you can see it's very thin. This is from the 1980s. Now I'm going to show you a digital camera. So a digital camera, of course, has an LCD display, right?
Yes.
Well, this does it. It tells you what kind of film you use.
Oh,
and so
okay.
They're pretty much almost the same size, but definitely the film camera is more sturdier than this one. The digital camera can get wet, but this one I've gotten really wet and it's always worked. So, but yeah, I really love these film cameras because I still use them, and they're really fun to use because if you shoot film, you have to realize you only get 36 frames.
36, wow.
That's it. And so you have to take your time when you take a picture, and you have to realize that when you're about to push that button, it better be the right photo for you.
Wow.
Where over here, you can just keep going and take as many as you want, and you have a little card that's inside, and this holds, this is 1 gigabyte.
Oh, wow.
This holds thousands of photos, right? The other one's only 36.
So when you're choosing your equipment, how expensive does it get? Like when you're trying to pick the right one that suits you, or like the right one that like suits the job?
Well, like I said, a lot of the cameras that I use, for me anyways, for the paper, they provide me with that gear. So I get my camera gears assigned to me. So, but I use a lot of camera gear because I have the kind of the sports I do. But mostly if you're gonna use these big lenses, grab this. So this is a 300 millimeter lens.
That is huge.
Yeah, and then this is a 20 millimeter lens, if you could tell, right?
Yeah.
So this is little and this is big, right? So these things are basically, yeah, each lens has a purpose that you would use it for. So this big lens I would use for sports, where the other little lens I would use for features assignments when I have to get close to something.
So if somebody wanted to come into photography, and they don't know what to buy, like how expensive does like camera equipment get?
Yeah, unfortunately, camera gear is very expensive, and so I always tell students when they first start out to try to get not the expensive gear, because you'll always get something that either you're not ready for. But I mean, it'd be great if you could afford it, but I think there's a level of learning the curve that you have to be able to say, okay, this is what I want to do, and and I'm going to try out what I can with what I have. And then you get better. And when you get better, you spend a little more money and get something different. And that with better lenses, because the cameras are probably all be the same. The quality that, this is crazy, but the cameras that you guys can get now that are really inexpensive are 100 times better than the cameras I started out with back in 1999.
Really?
Because they were, let's say your iPhone camera, the little camera on your iPhone,
Yeah.
that was better quality than what I used in 1999 as a professional camera. And that camera cost $10,000.
$10,000. Wow.
Mm-hmm. And not even that, when you push the shutter on the camera, it took a full second to actually register to take the shutter to take the picture.
So it's a lot slower than the devices we have now.
Back then, yes, because technology wasn't there yet. Now you're fine. Now it's great. Like if I was taking a picture of someone batting, I had to push the shutter when the pitcher let go of the ball, because it took that long for for the camera to actually take the picture.
Oh my God.
So, but technology has gotten better, right? And so now things are, so just because you get a lower brand, not as they call it prosumer camera, but just because you get that doesn't mean that it's not good enough for you. What it means is that you need to learn how to use that first. And then once you get better at that, then you could go on to the next level.
Oh, wow. Okay. So this is actually I hope the kids find this to be really fun. Have you ever had any like wild sports, like related stories while on the job? Did you have any adventures while you were traveling with one of the teams or anything like that?
Oh, I have a lot of adventures. I do. One year I was supposed to cover the 49ers playing the Green Bay Packers in Green Bay. And the hardest part to get to, it wasn't even the game. It was the fact it was trying to get to the Green Bay. It was negative 12 degrees.
Oh my God.
So airplanes couldn't land. The fuel in the plane couldn't because it was freezing. The trains, they couldn't go because of the fuel was freezing. So I got to Chicago with my coworker, and we drove all the way to Wisconsin.
Oh my God, you were from Chicago to... Wow.
So the night before, yeah, because those are just some of the fun adventures we have. I guess the other ones were like just trying to get across country during the NBA playoffs. I usually probably only sleep like 3 hours a night because you're flying across. If they're playing, like when they played in Toronto, we flew from Oakland to Buffalo, New York, and then we drove across the border to Toronto. So, but notice how I'm telling you, all these adventures, they have nothing to do with the photography yet. That's just getting there.
Here.
Exactly. So when we finally get there, then it's a whole different thing when we're there, because then you have to get there 5-6 hours before a game. You have to set up. You have to talk to your reporters. You have to learn where all the positions are, and you definitely have to find out where all the bathrooms are, because you're like,
you have to be there the whole time.
So Cleveland, I got very used to. I went to Cleveland 4 years in a row, and so I got very accustomed to going to Cleveland. So,
really?
But yeah. So, but I've been to New York during 9/11 and with the Oakland A's when they were there, and I was in Yankee Stadium right after 9/11, and so that's one of those moments when we all had a moment of silence with all after 9/11, and that was probably one of those most special moments that I've ever remember. So there's little things that happen like that always stay with you.
So again, this is following up with any of the crazy stories. Like,
yeah,
I know a lot sports. There's been a lot of like groundbreaking, record-breaking history that's been made throughout the years. Have you witnessed any of those for yourself?
Oh yes. Well, let's see. I was there for when Barry Bonds broke Babe Ruth's record, and when he surpassed him. I was there for the famous Oakland Raiders tuck rule in New England when he. It's a sore subject because I was photographing it in the snow, and I never actually saw it. I
You
didn't have a
never
picture.
saw it, but you took it.
But I know, not really, because I didn't have a photo, because that's the whole joke, was that I was there, but I never saw it. And because there's so much snow falling, I couldn't even see the quarterback.
Oh
So
my
then
God.
remember when little Dusty Baker's son went out to the field, and well, there was a moment in the World Series where his Dusty Baker, the manager, and his son ran on to go pick up a bat, and he almost got ran over in home plate. So that was
Oh my
that was a little back then, and that was kind of a very important part of history. But I was blocked. I was blocked by 3 people in the Empire, so I never actually got to see it. But other events, mostly nowadays, it's been having to do with in sports. You know, now that you think about it, all the time I've been photographing the Super Bowls and everybody, the home teams never won.
Really?
So my teams have never won because the last one, the 49ers lost, they lost. And so all I had to do is photograph them with their head down walking out. So yeah, I need to change that, because the only team I've photographed that's won so far are the Warriors.
Okay, so this might be a little bit of a hot topic, but
Sure.
what are your favorite sports teams? You've mentioned some, but you haven't laid it all out.
Wow. Well, my favorite sport teams before I started taking pictures were the Oakland A's and the 49ers.
Okay.
But I have to tell you, when I started taking their pictures, I got really nervous taking the pictures, because I was really cared about the outcome of what happened, right?
Yeah.
So I had to actually learn how to separate myself from the team.
Oh,
And so once I did that, I didn't get nervous, because, when they win, you either win and you celebrate, or you lose and you're sad. So if you're sad, that could last for it's easy to photograph someone who's sad, but if they win, you only have a split second to capture that one moment.
so you have to be in that zone. You can't really just throw your hands up in the air and just be like, yeah.
Exactly. So you have to be calm and you have to be focused. And meanwhile, I'm like this going, ah!
Just on the inside, just oh my God.
Exactly. So when my first time the Warriors ever won, I was really nervous, because, but was I nervous on the, at the 5th game? No, not really. You learn to separate yourself from that. And that's actually a very important part of what we do, is that we have to be unbiased. But as a big fan who's been doing this for a long time, I do have my favorites.
Okay. This is sort of the last questions I have. What are some of the things you learned from the athlete you work with?
That's a very good question. I think it depends on, well, no, it doesn't really depend. I think what I learned a lot from is that athletes are put into positions where what they do, people think that what they're doing is basically, they do have fun. I think it depends on the person who you photograph, but a lot of athletes, this is their job. And it's very difficult to separate your job from having fun, because you realize that it depends on the person, how they are and who they are, right? And so I see a lot of people out there having a lot of fun, and usually the people that have a lot of fun are usually the ones that do really well. And it's not that they don't care that they lose, but there's something more important to it, right? Especially the message that you show kids through your actions on the field. Because you want to tell children, you want to show everybody that even though if you lose gracefully. And so one of those things that I've learned from is, especially from people like Steph Curry, and I bring his name a lot because I really think that his parents did a wonderful job raising him, because I think that he basically, what you see is what you get, and that he does care about that. And so when I've seen him lose, he's been gracious. He always hugs him. Him win, he doesn't take spotlight. He doesn't say it's all about me. It's about the whole team. So I've seen that, and I've watched it in person. I've seen how he handles off the court, where he handled with his family and how he deals with people. And I've grown to respect him very much because of that. Because when people don't see the camera on, they either act differently or they act the same. Steph has always acted the same. He shows respect, and he shows that he's having a lot of fun doing what he's doing.
Okay, that's it for today's video, guys. I hope you enjoyed this video as much as I did. It was really great talking to Jose about what he did as a photojournalist, and I will be leaving his Instagram down in the descriptions below. Make sure to like, share, and subscribe to our channel, and follow us down in our social medias. And I'll see you guys all next time. Bye!